Story 1. We got trapped during a blizzard, and someone was already inside the cabin. I grew up in a northern state where winter storms were normal. Snow didn't scare me. Blizzards didn't scare me. Being cold didn't scare me. What scares me now is silence during a blizzard. This happened 5 years ago, and I still have trouble sleeping whenever the wind starts howling outside. The trip. It was supposed to be a simple weekend trip. 4 of us, me, my older brother Mark, his girlfriend Allison, and our friend Trevor, decided to rent a remote cabin in the mountains for a short winter getaway. No parties, no hiking, just a quiet place to drink, relax, and disconnect. The forecast mentioned snow, nothing extreme. That was the first lie. The drive in. The road up the mountain was narrow and already coated with ice. Trees leaned over both sides, their branches heavy with snow. As we climbed higher, cell service dropped to 1 bar, then none. By the time we reached the cabin, snow was coming down harder, fast, too fast. Mark joked that we were officially snowed in. None of us laughed. The cabin. The cabin was older than the photos suggested, wooden, creaky, poorly insulated. It had 2 bedrooms, a small bathroom, and a living room with a fireplace. No nearby neighbors, no visible road once the snow started piling up. But the strangest thing was this: the cabin was warm. Not "we just turned the heat on" warm. It felt like someone had been there recently. The first red flag. While unloading bags, Trevor pointed something out. There were footprints, leading around the side of the cabin. Fresh ones. We assumed it was the owner checking on the place. We shouldn't have. The blizzard hits. By nightfall, the storm had turned violent. Wind slammed against the walls. Snow hit the windows like sand. The power flickered once, twice, then went out completely. We were officially trapped. The fireplace kept the main room warm, but the rest of the cabin grew cold fast. That's when we heard it. A noise from inside the walls. Someone moving. At first, we thought it was the wind, but it wasn't random. It sounded like footsteps, slow, careful, above us. Mark grabbed the flashlight and checked the attic hatch. It was closed, but there were scratches around the edges, fresh ones. The smell. About an hour later, Allison noticed a smell, something sour, old clothes, old sweat. It wasn't coming from us. It was drifting down from somewhere higher. The first night. We decided to sleep in shifts. No one said it out loud, but we all felt it. Someone else was there. Sometime after midnight, while Mark and Trevor were asleep, I heard it clearly. Breathing. Not close. Above. Right above the ceiling. I didn't wake anyone. I regret that. The discovery. In the morning, the storm was worse. The door was frozen shut, windows completely buried. Trevor went to grab extra firewood from the storage room. He came back pale. Inside the storage room, behind stacked logs, was a sleeping bag, used and empty. The notebook. We searched the cabin. In the attic, we found a notebook wrapped in plastic. Inside were dates, notes, weather reports. The last entry was written 2 days before we arrived. It said, "Storm coming, perfect timing." The second night. That night, the noises were louder. Footsteps across the ceiling, something being dragged. At one point, the attic hatch shifted slightly, just enough for dust to fall. Then a voice whispered, "Don't move." None of us slept after that. The footprints. Around 3 a.m., the storm suddenly went quiet. Too quiet. Mark looked out the window. There were footprints. leading from the cabin into the blizzard, barefoot. Rescue. We were rescued the next afternoon. The authorities searched the cabin and surrounding area. They found nothing, no body, no tracks. But the officer told us something before we left. This cabin had been reported before. People claimed someone stayed inside during storms, waiting, using blizzards to hide. The worst part. Months later, Mark received an email from the rental service. It was an automated message. It said, "Thank you for checking out. We hope you enjoyed your stay. We noticed 5 guests stayed overnight. There were only 4 of us."
Story 2. We pulled over during the blizzard. We shouldn't have. If you've ever driven during a blizzard, you know how quickly things can go wrong. One minute, you think you're in control. The next minute, the world disappears. This happened during a winter storm so bad that highways were shut down afterward. But at the time, we thought we could outrun it. We were wrong. The drive. It was just after Christmas. My girlfriend at the time, Emily, and I were driving back from visiting her parents. It was supposed to be a 6-hour drive through mostly rural highways. The weather report mentioned heavy snow, nothing about a full blizzard. By the time we were 2 hours in, the snow was coming down sideways. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The road ahead looked like it was being erased as we drove. The decision. Around 9:40 p.m., traffic slowed to a crawl. Cars began pulling over to the shoulder. Some turned around completely. We debated stopping, but the idea of sitting in a car during a blizzard terrified us more than driving. Then we saw it. A small rest stop sign, just ahead. One building, a parking area, light. We decided to pull in. That decision almost killed us. The rest stop. The rest stop was nearly empty. One snowplow parked crookedly, 2 cars with their engines running. The lights were on. We parked close to the entrance and hurried inside. The heat felt immediate and wrong. Not public building warm. Too warm. Inside. There were no attendants, no staff, just a vending machine humming and a bathroom sign flickering. And one other person, a man sitting on a bench near the back wall. He was wearing a heavy winter coat, hood pulled up, gloves still on. He didn't look at us, didn't move, didn't even react when the door slammed shut behind us. The storm gets worse. The wind outside sounded violent. You could feel it pushing against the walls. Snow started piling against the doors, making them harder to open. Emily whispered that we should leave. I told her we should wait it out. That's when the lights flickered. Once, twice, then stabilized. The man on the bench finally spoke. They always cut the power first. His voice was calm, almost bored. The first red flag. I asked him what he meant. He didn't answer. He just turned his head slightly towards us. I could see part of his face under the hood. His lips were cracked. His skin looked gray, like he'd been out in the cold for a long time. Too long. The bathroom. Emily went to the restroom. She was gone longer than expected. When she came back, her face was pale. She grabbed my arm and whispered, "There's blood on the sink." Not a lot, just smeared, like someone had tried to wash it away. The doors. When I tried to open the front door to check outside, it barely moved. Snow had drifted almost halfway up the glass. The man behind us chuckled. "The storm's not done yet," he said. "You'll be here a while." The other car. One of the cars outside shut its engine off. The lights went dark. A few minutes later, we heard pounding on the door.
A woman's voice, panicked, begging to be let in. I rushed toward the door. The man stood up. For the first time, he was taller than I expected, thinner too. "You don't want to open that," he said quietly. I ignored him. I pulled the door just enough to see her. She looked frozen, her lips blue, eyes wild. Behind her, in the white blur of the storm, someone else was standing, watching. I slammed the door shut. The silence. The pounding stopped. The wind swallowed everything. Emily started crying. The man sat back down. "I told you, it takes them." The truth. I asked him who they were. He shrugged. "People who know how to wait." He explained that during blizzards, some people don't try to survive. They hunt. Storms hide footprints, cover sounds, erase evidence. Rest stops, cabins, cars stuck on the road, all perfect. The power goes out. At 11:13 p.m., the power finally died. Complete darkness. The only light came from my phone. That's when I realized something. The man's coat was dry. No snow, no melting ice. He hadn't come from outside. The movement. We heard footsteps inside the building. From the back, more than one set. The man smiled. Too late now. Rescue. We were rescued around 4 a.m. by emergency crews. They found us alone. No man, no other people. Outside, they found one abandoned car, frozen solid. No sign of the woman. The final detail. Before leaving, one officer told us something quietly. That rest stop wasn't on official maps anymore. It was supposed to be closed, condemned, because during major storms, people kept disappearing there. The worst part. Weeks later, I checked my phone. There was a voice recording I didn't remember making, time-stamped 11:13 p.m. You can hear the wind, Emily crying, and a man whispering, "They never make it out in the white."
Story 3. The Blizzard That Never Let Us Leave. We had been warned, not by the weather report, not by the radio, by locals. The road we were taking was dangerous in the winter. Twists, narrow paths, snowdrifts. People disappear here every year, they said. I didn't believe them. I wish I had. The trip. I was 24. My friend Ryan and I decided to drive north to a remote cabin his family owned in Maine. It was supposed to be a 3-day weekend of skiing and relaxing. By the time we left, the sky was gray. Snow started lightly, nothing heavy, but the moment we crossed the mountain pass, the storm hit. Visibility dropped to a few feet. Wind howled like an animal. The warning signs. At first, we laughed at the blizzard. Just a little snow, Ryan said, but soon the road disappeared. Snow piled up so fast that our tires struggled for traction. We pulled over at a tiny shoulder clearing. Ryan joked, "We're stuck for a while, I guess." I didn't joke. I had a feeling we weren't going anywhere. The isolation. Hours passed. Headlights barely cut through the storm. The engine hummed. We were both exhausted. Then we noticed movement. Another car approaching in the blizzard. It slowed, stopped behind us. The driver never got out, just sat there, engine running, watching. We couldn't see the face. Something about the stillness, it didn't feel right. The cabin. Finally, we reached the cabin. It looked abandoned, but the fireplace was warm. Someone had been there. We found supplies, food, blankets, neatly stacked, but the feeling, wrong. Every shadow felt alive. Every floorboard creaked too perfectly. As night fell,
I realized we weren't alone. The first night. Around midnight, while Ryan slept, I heard footsteps above the ceiling, slow, controlled, not natural. I held my breath. The attic hatch slit slightly. Then the whisper, "Don't move." I froze. The blizzard outside. The storm raged. Snow battered the windows. Wind shook the walls. We couldn't leave. Even if we wanted to, leaving meant certain death in the storm. And the more we tried to rationalize, the more we realized the truth. The cabin was a trap. Somebody had planned for this. They knew the storm would come. They waited. The unseen presence. Over the next hours, signs were everywhere. Footprints in the snow outside the doors, appearing and disappearing. Food missing that we hadn't eaten. Items moved from one room to another. At first, we thought it was a raccoon. Then we realized the prints were human, barefoot, and far too large to belong to us. Barefoot, and far too large to belong to us. Barefoot, and far too large to belong to us. The second night. Sleep was impossible. Every creak, every thump, every faint sound from the attic made us flinch. I caught a shadow moving past the doorway. Ryan saw it too. No one there. The storm outside howled, but inside, silence. Too quiet. We weren't alone, and whoever it was, they were patient. The blizzard intensifies. On the third night, the storm became lethal. Temperature plummeted. Snowdrifts blocked the cabin doors. We couldn't move, couldn't call for help. Even shouting into the storm got no response. We realized the person or people inside the cabin could watch us for days without leaving. They didn't need to attack immediately. Waiting was enough. The final discovery. By dawn on the fourth day, we discovered the truth. In the attic, a small makeshift sleeping area, used blankets, footprints, food wrappers, and a notebook. Inside, dates, times, weather conditions, notes about us, and a single phrase repeated over and over: "They will never leave alive." Rescue or luck? We were eventually rescued by a search team. The storm had closed roads, and they only found us by chance. The authorities searched the cabin afterwards. No fingerprints, no DNA, no trace of the person who had lived there, watching us for days. We left without looking back. I haven't returned, and I never will. The worst part. Months later, I found something in a news article. A couple had disappeared in the same area during a blizzard. The cabin they had been headed for, the same layout as ours. I still think about it every winter, because the scariest part isn't the storm, it's the patience, and how someone, somewhere, can just wait.